Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary, because Bali is extraordinary.
Hi everyone, all people online, wherever you are, whether it's morning, good morning, if it's evening, good evening, and all the people who are here, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival 2021. This year the festival has the theme of Mulat Sarira, which means self-reflection, and it's drawn from Balinese Hindu philosophies, this idea of self-reflection. And so we will be in this theme during this session today also, but we will also explore the meaning of self-reflection, cultural introspection, and human rights, examining who we are, what unites and divides us, what drives us, our actions. And so this festival will be dealing with all of this. And so welcome to this session, which is a special session. I'm very happy to be moderating this session with Mayank Austen Soofi and Joshua Irwandi. And it's just a session which is nominally about photography, but it's more about images and image making and what it means. And here we have actually two different approaches to documenting or reporting or reportage. One, the first of our speakers will be Mayank Austen Soofi, who is actually a blogger, and he says that he uses his photographs to help illustrate or to help show what his blogs are about. And the other is Joshua Irwandi, who is an Indonesian, Mayank is from Delhi, by the way. His blog is called Delhi Wala, I should mention that. It's a very famous blog. And Joshua is an Indonesian photographer who has kind of shot up to everybody's, on everybody's screen now because of a certain reportage that he did last year about the pandemic. But he's much more than just that. So I would, if either of you guys think I've missed something, please just jump in and say, okay.
No, it's completely fine as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Okay,
thank you.
Good. So I will just start briefly with Mayank. So this session is called A Photograph is Worth 1,000 Perspectives. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I will play along with it. So in an article in the New Yorker about Mayank, which was written by Karan Mahajan, he says all of his work together in the Delhi Wala blog may add up to one of the most eccentric and encyclopedic ground-level portraits of a megacity in the internet age. And that hooked me straight away. I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. The thing, in a conversation that we had earlier this week, Mayank says, I'm not trying to change the world, he says. His main thing is that if people see their picture and it's published or it's online or whatever, they should not feel humiliated, sincerely respectful, more thoughtful now than ever before. Can we show some of Mayank's pictures, please? Hello? Mayank's pictures? Yes, okay. Otherwise, this is, I took this off your blog, Mayank, and I put the text underneath it. It's hard to read there, but I hope online it might be more visible. But it's interesting because it tells the story of this tailor, and in a very simple, matter-of-fact way, and how he lost his living. His wife has died, his son has died, and he's...
In the pandemic.
Sorry? In the pandemic, yes.
Like he lost his living in the pandemic, yeah.
During the pandemic, sorry. And so maybe you could tell me a little bit about taking this picture and what it was, the story, not necessarily off the text, but just a brief recap of it, if you like, Mayank.
Yeah, I'm very glad that you talked about this photo. I had also sent you some like beautiful photos which I've taken in real time, but to take out this one as a photograph, it's really nothing, you know. I take it through phone. But you know, when the pandemic started, I'm a blogger in Delhi, and all my life since last 10 years, I'm walking down the streets, meeting strangers, talking to them, taking their photos. And when the pandemic began, I was terrified because, you know, I cannot stay home. I have to be outside. And when I mean outside, I have to engage with people, to meet more and more strangers every new day. So when the pandemic began, I thought that how will I go on with my life? And what will happen to my blog? What will happen to my Instagram? What will happen to my work? And if I'm not doing that, I'm just dead. And then, you know, the lockdown started in Delhi. Nobody could go out, and I was trapped within my home. And then it seemed like as if a very profound thing has happened in my life, and of course, in the life of the rest of the world, also, of course. But then, you know, I got this idea of WhatsApp video. I started contacting people through their phone. I started contacting a friend's driver, a friend's tailor, a tailor's friend, a tailor's friend's second cousin from the village who knows somebody in Delhi who has been affected by the pandemic. And I started talking to them through WhatsApp video and started taking their photos through WhatsApp video. So this is how I connected with this tailor in suburbs of Delhi. And 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 you know, during those horrible times of the early days of the pandemic, when the city, when the country was in lockdown, you could not get out of the house, I met so many people through WhatsApp video, met so many strangers. And then I did not feel at all that I'm trapped inside my home. I was constantly traveling, constantly going inside people's room. And Rio, actually, I discovered another thing which I think I discussed with you earlier also, that when I would meet people in real, people would be hesitant first to talk to me, to reach out to me, because, you know, I'm a stranger. Who knows? I might be some, you know, horrible guy. Why should I be allowed to take this nap? Why should they take me inside their house, inside the drawing room, offer me chai or take me to the bedroom? But on WhatsApp video, people were so disarming to me. You know, they would welcome me into their home. They would take me into the kitchen, into the bedroom, show me their husbands, wives, daughters, fathers, sons, and share all the intimate things with me. And also, of course, this disarming, I think, was also because of the fact that we all were very vulnerable, and we sort of shared, whether we were rich or poor or middle class or upper middle class, that we all are passing through a common situation which is traumatic to us all. And you know, we just wanted to share, to hug each other virtually. And
Mayank, Mayank,
so this
Mayank,
was part of that.
I would just like to ask, have you followed up and met some of these people who you interviewed online? Have you met some of them afterwards? Just out of, I mean, you know.
No, I haven't met them afterwards. What I've actually done is that, you know, I've again written about them, you know, again through WhatsApp video. I haven't met them, and the people whom I've written about through WhatsApp video, met them through WhatsApp video. I haven't met them in real as yet,
Okay.
although I've now started
It
going
just,
out and meeting
just
people.
it brings up an interesting point, because there's this idea, you know, that it came up in a discussion the other day. Actually, it was the Dalai Lama was talking, and the member of the audience asked the question: "We can't meet you now live, but we only can meet you online. Isn't that something which has to be remedied?" And he said, "Well, basically, if you listen to me online and we talk, you know, we are meeting. We are actually meeting. And you know, when you talk about, okay, all the Buddha or the great teachers of the past, or whatever you're into, whatever the culture, I mean, you're not meeting these people. You're not meeting, you know, Charles, you know, whatever, you know, from the English literary, you know, lineup from last century. You can't meet them, but through the books, and now it's online. So the thing with the images, which is so interesting, is that you have this conversation online, and you have this image, and it brings an immediacy to that experience that you have. Would you think of doing a more, like for example, that Taylor, would you think of doing a more extensive blog about him at one point, or a longer thing, or a book? Is there, of those encounters, is that something on your radar?
Oh, because most of my work is, I don't write long stories about people I meet. What I love doing is meeting a variety of people every day, many people, and just trying to understand a moment in their life in this city. So I'm very much happy that I met them at that particular time, and I might meet them again offline or online, but that will be another story. Then I won't be trying to go into the past or something, but just touching upon their life at this moment. But you said it very right that, sometimes, the way I had been intimate with people online, on WhatsApp, video, I don't know if they will be that natural to me when we will meet in real life. For instance, I'll tell you that in the second wave, early this year in Delhi, it was very, very devastating. Even I passed through phase. And I met a girl on WhatsApp video. She lost her father, she lost her grandmother within the span of 15, 20 days. And we really chatted, we talked, and I took a photo on WhatsApp video and we talked about her loss. And then, much later, we met in a bookstore. And, just by accident. And we would be very articulate to each other in our phone, but there we didn't know what to talk. It was so awkward. We just, shook hands and just tried to press each other's hand to tell that yes.
Mayank, can I stop you for a second? We're screening this shot of this guy having his shoes polished in. It looks like Connaught Circle. Can you put that picture back up again, please?
It is Connaught Place.
Can you please put it up? Yeah, Connaught Place. It's kind of interesting to me. There's a lot of things that it says to me. I know you say, okay, it's a simple snapshot, but semiotics. The guy standing up in this very kind of almost domineering position, the shoeshine walla down on the ground, and the other guy at the back. Were you thinking of what you were doing when you took this picture, or was it just one of your iPhone snap, or how did it? What was going through your head?
No, I'll have to give you the context. Connaught Place is one of the most loved shopping district in the heart of New Delhi. It's kind of a circle where people walk all day long, and we are doing window shopping, we are eating, we are watching beautiful people, we are watching rich people, and we are gossiping about each other. And during the lockdown, everything shut down, and nobody could go to Connaught Place. Nobody lives in Connaught Place. It's just a shopping district. And then we would have these newspaper photographs of hundreds of pigeons in the places where we the muggles would walk. So it was very beautiful to watch the pigeons, but it was also very sad that we cannot be there by living in the same city, and all our memories of Connaught Place would come back to us. So this is a photo when the lockdown was just lifted, and
very contextual. It's very contextual for you as a Delhi wala. For me, I'm looking at this photograph in a totally different way. I'm seeing the columns.
I know what you mean.
The columns standing straight, the man standing straight.
But what I want to add is that when I'm seeing this shoe shiner man, I'm happy for him that he's got a business now. Just imagine what he must be going through when there were no people. Everyone was in lockdown. You don't know where he was living. Was he living? If he has a house of his own? If he has a jhuggi? If he has a slum? Or he had gone back to his village? How was he making money? How was he having his food daily? So just to see that life come back to some semblance of abnormality, to see this guy getting a customer, to get a shoe to shine finally, it was actually very heartening to watch it,
And this phone number of the rickshaw wala.
Oh, this is so, to me, it's so sad. In the lockdown, when everything had shut down, you wouldn't notice such a thing, the whole streets of Delhi, and Delhi is a city of 18 million people. I mean, you're tired of seeing the faces, but then the city got empty, and suddenly you see the skeletons of the city, as if there was a bomb and everyone was dead, and all was left was souvenirs of some life. So suddenly you realize that our walls and our trees and our gardens are filled with these mobile phone numbers of people who offer these very basic services like a rickshaw puller or like a carpenter. You can call this number, you can dial this number and call this person home. And I actually dial these people. Some of the phones were dead, some of the phones were not working, and some of the people had gone back home. And gone back home means, there were no trains or buses at that time. So they were walking hundreds of miles home back to the villages. So just to look at this phone number, it depicted so much about our city, about coronavirus pandemic, how the world has been flattened, and about lives of so many people. Like, I mean, I had an iPhone, and I was having my food daily, and I was clicking these pictures, but I also had a trauma. But then you think of somebody, this person, Tiwari Rikshawala, with a phone number. His phone number was not working at that time. You don't know where his rickshaw was, where his family was, what he was going through. So these are the faces which we don't see. And now we were just seeing their phone numbers.
Okay, I'm gonna switch over now to, thank you, and we'll get back to you in a minute. And I'd like to talk to Joshua about, it's interesting, you guys have completely different approaches. You take snapshots with words and you illustrate it with pictures, is how I see it. And I'd like to talk to Joshua, who's obviously somebody, Josh, you're somebody you studied photography, you had great mentors, when did you graduate? Now, a few years ago, not that long ago, no?
Yeah, I graduated from my master's in 2014. Yeah. Okay,
so you've been working as a photojournalist and doing documentary work, and I asked you once about, do you see that a lot of people seem to think there's a wall between documentary and photojournalism, and it was interesting, what you said to me. You said that you didn't think there was any need to choose.
No. No, certainly not. I think at the heart of the matter is the story. And as a photojournalist, as a documentary photographer, I believe in long-term projects. And sorry, I'm just not. I'm not used to seeing myself like this big on the screen.
You look fine.
Same thing with me. I was also sort of taken aback.
So Josh, just to come back to why I'm talking about this, you said in one of our conversations that you've always believed in long form documentary work, which that's my thing too. I like doing that. But what's so interesting as when that image went viral, can we have the image, please, the first one? Thank you. Can you put it up? This image of the COVID, I don't know if the word victim is the correct term, but the person who died from COVID in a Jakarta hospital, this went completely viral, and it was nothing of the background story of this came out. Nobody's looked or cared or was interested in seeing that. All they saw was this. And what happened to you when this picture, as I understand it, somebody actually published, you were going to get it published, but somebody actually, they ran with it, or somebody put it on social media without your permission, is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. What happened to me? Well, basically, going back to your previous question, I always believe in long-form documentary photography. Like I showed you some of my asthma work. And also this particular image that went viral was part of a longer term project that I was doing in a hospital for a few months.
But that hardly got any air for a long time. That one picture of yours, just really, it kind of, people couldn't see further than that for a long time. And you got a lot of flack for that too, yeah? For that picture.
Mm-hmm. So I decided to just publish after National Geographic published it on their platform, and then I just immediately as any photographer would, published on social media. And of course, I have to say that I published it on social media, not necessarily as what people have been saying, like it's fear mongering, it's just trying to scare people off. But then but then at the end of the day, this is the reality that is happening in the hospital. And then of course, on social media, it went viral. Um, a lot of public figures shared it on Instagram story. People shared it with everybody else. But then there are also another side where they made a screenshot of the image, and then they wrote questions on it.
You got bullied for that, right? You got bullied a lot for that picture, no? As I understand.
Yeah, but then that's social media for you, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to name names, but at the end of the day, it's social media. I quickly learned that we can't take anything personally on social media. It's the way it is. It's the way the algorithm works. I mean, like if you believe in something, or if you perpetrate something, or you comment on certain things, then it will feed it back to you.
But can I ask you something personal? This is actually, when every photographer sees the picture and then makes a move to take it, right? What went through your head? Did you know that was there, or did you just stumble on it, and what went through your head when you were taking the picture?
I mean, it's just like any. Well, to be honest, it's just like any other documentation in the hospital, like any other photojournalists do. They go into the ward, they get access, and they get all the permissions, and then they happen to photograph, what in this case a dead body. Did
you feel like some kind of, was it like a moment for you?
There was, I suppose, like when I was making the image, I was thinking of course, of my friends and family back home. What because at the time, I mean, it's not particularly super new news, so to speak, about bodies being wrapped. We saw this earlier in the at the beginning of the pandemic. It's a mandate from the Indonesian
Yes, absolutely. Like this picture that's up on the screen now. Can you see it? Yeah, it's much less personal. I mean, in a way, that picture of the body was. I think people really kind of reeled back when they saw it, because it was so. What went through my head is that could be me, and now this picture here. Yes, it has an impact, and the next one, please. This too has an impact, but it's somehow not as that one picture. I mean, and I understand that was a runner-up for the Pulitzer, right? And you won other prizes for that picture, that one of the corpse, no?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So, was the feeling that you had, and also, I mean, when I'm talking about feeling, I'm also thinking about there's always this issue about what's the ethics of doing this, of covering people who are suffering, people who are in distress and so forth. And did any of that come into play when you're in the hospital?
Of course, absolutely. And throughout my documentation, like I documented the pandemic twice. I mean, pretty much twice, last year and this year, especially in the July, August of this year. And in the July, August of this year, I was able to, to speak to some of the people who were suffering, and also some of the survivors as well. And of course, I mean, ethics-wise, you do the drill. I mean, you have to.
But that picture, more than any of these kind of pictures, that one picture it really changed the game in Indonesia. I mean, it really made people, it galvanized the government too. And, for that, that deserves a prize. Anyway, okay, I'd like to kind of You know, can we see the other pictures? So this is, and when I asked Joshua, you know, what pictures would you say really are representative of your work? And he sent me this link of his work in Papua. And it was interesting to me because here's this, you know, person who's made this big kind of photojournalistic breakthrough, and the work that you seem to think is really representative of your work is this very ethnographic type of documentary work. You have a comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, the Asmat work is the work that I've been doing for the longest time, since 2013 when I first got there, and then in 2014 when in 2015 actually when I finished my master's, I went back and actually worked as a museum staff at the Asmat Museum of Culture and Progress in Agats in Papua. Okay. That took about a year, and when I say it's the most representative, it's because I feel like my vision or my was shaped when I was in Asmat, and also from what I saw in Asmat as well. And it's also speaking to me, like we think about the Asmat people in Papua. Of course, it's this is a bit of a cliche, but you know, it's of giving voice to the voiceless, whatever that means, right? And then it's of course, is it my voice that we need? Do we need their voice as well? Can they tell anything about these images? So on that note, that this is the kind of grounding that I have, that I carry on as I go out to the field, and as I go out, you know, documenting COVID, you know, in making conversations with some of the survivors, the medical workers, because these voices are hardly heard. Like what we see is, or what we see most of the time is the headline, right? I mean, this is what's happening. This is the numbers, so on and so forth. But then as you know, the voices of the survivors, and then to reflect back to Mayank's own work.
Well, this is what I'd like to do now. Is I'd like you guys to mix it up. Let's mix it up. I mean, you should. Why don't we have a conversation? I mean, you know, Mayank, I'm interested to see what you think of this work, and Josh, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about what Mayank does. Please, I mean, feel free.
So, like, I mean, I was just going to touch on, like, you know, on Mayank's work. It's about, I think we have our common denominator between Mayank and I would be the fact that we actually want to hear, you know, of the voices of the people that are being unheard of, if that's correct.
Yes, that's clear. I mean, that's clear. I mean, Mayank, what does something go through your head when you look at these pictures from Joshua's of the pandemic pictures?
I was waiting. I was like bubbling with something to speak, but you know, good manners prevented me from speaking up while Joshua was speaking. I've seen that picture which we were talking about first, the first of Joshua's picture. Oh, you know, when the screen comes and it just shows my face, it looks very odd that I'm talking to myself. Sorry. Can we see Rio's face on the main screen if that's possible? Otherwise, it gets very distracting when you're watching your own face on both the screens on your screen. Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Small technical issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
This is better.
Yeah, now we can just see Rio, so that's good. Otherwise, it's like very odd to see face blown up, you know? Yeah. So I was saying that, you know, that unknown person on the bed, it's such a... I mean, you know, that picture has a context, you know. As a viewer who is not a photographer, I'm thinking, was Joshua, it was just one of the many random pictures which he took when he was walking in the hospital? Or did he really think and he stood there for long and decided how to take it, where to stand, you know? So all these questions go into your mind. But also that it's such a... You know that this is some particular person who has got his own story, but at the same time, it's such a universal picture. It could be Delhi, it could be Bombay, it could be New York. And we don't know who's this person, whether he's black or white or Indian or Indonesian. He could be anywhere. He's completely wrapped like Egyptian mummy. It's like you see so many things in that picture, and it's just it's so affecting, and. Uh, Apparently Joshua has got a lot of flack for these pictures, but I think he should be proud about it, because I think a really a, a work that ignites various differing emotions in people's heart, in readers' heart. I always think of people who see the pictures as readers, not viewers.
Well, in
I
in a
think
conversation,
when
Mayank, just a second. In a conversation with Joshua that I had, he said it's really important to have good captions for the pictures. And this is why I was really intrigued by this choice of you too. I didn't actually, I didn't know your work before and so forth. But you're a person who works so much with words, and the pictures mean something to add to the words. And Joshua works with pictures, with images, and then he's saying, okay, we need captions. We need captions. You need to bring the whole picture in. Do you see, either of you, do you see from this conversation coming out and this encounter that your work might slightly, Joshua, you might work more with words now, and maybe Mayank, you might get inspired to work more in the photography. I mean, do you see that happening at all? This is you're totally almost coming to the same point from almost a totally different direction,
Joshua, would you like to speak first?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if I think perhaps if I may, make a wild guess, the fact that it went viral, not of course of the I suppose the graphic quality of the image. I mean, to be honest, I never thought it would be published. Before National Geographic decided to. I mean, like, I sent them my whole lot of work from the hospital and the field, and they chose just that one particular picture, just that one.
Well, if I had been the editor, I would have done the same thing. I mean, honestly, that picture, like, bam, I mean, in the context of the time. Sorry, continue, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. And I think it's careful captioning as well. It's like, what are you trying to tell? Like, when I posted on social media, obviously, I at the time, like, I didn't think it was going to be it was going to be viral or anything. It's just a reality, right? And it's just like the careful captioning, stating your intentions, what you want to do with, like, why are you showing this picture, and that reason is showing the reality and to make people aware of the danger of coronavirus.
Rio, can I ask Joshua one thing, if it's okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Joshua, I just wanted to know that, I don't know the context when you clicked the picture. Did you know that person? Did you know who was admitted there, the person who died? But did you try to know, would you at some point like to know about his background, research on him? Perhaps research is a very crude word, but just to know about him, or maybe write, or maybe photograph the world he has left behind, his family, his home, or something. Just curious to know what you feel about that.
Oh, on that particular picture, I have a non-disclosure agreement.
Okay. Okay.
It's just like I went through some pretty arduous permissions process. I mean, especially with everybody involved. So,
But you do know who it was.
You know the family.
I mean, we're not asking you to disclose it, but you do know the family. Or I'm just, well, you know the person's name or whatever.
I can't reveal it either. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to push you on it.
Yeah.
What did you think when you looked at Mayank's work?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's captivating. And going back to the to image and text, like Mayank, you describe yourself more as a writer more than a photographer. Huh?
I want to say that, photographs, I've grown up with photographs, when I didn't realize that One day I'll be clicking so many pictures. At one time in my childhood, I had hundreds of National Geographic magazines, and I would be seeing the work of Henri Cartier-Bresson and all sorts of coffee table books, and I was always amazed by those photographs. So photographs are very important to me, but I think I'm a writer, I see things, I try to see things through words. So even when I'm clicking a picture, the first thing which comes into my head are the words, are the phrases, the sentences are dancing in front of my eyes. And I see the images through them. So, even when I'm walking around in Delhi, mm, any given day, when I see people, the ordinary lives being lived on the street, inside homes, I see some particular characters or lines from the beloved novels which I have read, from poems of Emily Dickinson, Wallace Stevens. So really, I think words are like, I love words, I love photos also, but to me, photos are parts of words, The words are the main thing for me, and I think it'll always stay the same.
I always kind of feel like if one wants to become a photographer or whatever, however you want to label it these days, there's like so many labels, photographer, visual storyteller, writer, visual storyteller, content creator, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, it's what's really strong about Mayank's work. It's the story, the story behind these people. And as you would agree, I think that's what kind of unites us, the fact that
In my initial email to you guys, I spoke of the experience that, in my experience of when, because I write and I take pictures, and when I was working doing stories, when the story was, I was writing, I found that the photography just wasn't coming to me easily, and when I was photographing, I couldn't think about the words because, it would get in the way. I actually see a kind of, it's almost like you have to make a choice at a certain point. What are you going to do? Because it's hard to get deep in or to where you want to get, even with your snapshots, Mayank, if you're thinking photographically, or it's hard to get into writing out a whole text, and often I would just, when I came back, I would you kind of vomit it all out. Do you have that experience? Josh, do you find it's hard to write when you're like in the middle of shooting something? I mean, not in the middle, but in that on an assignment, a photo assignment.
Well, I mean, we are required to caption and try to contextualize the image in whatever way the story is being arranged. I suppose. Yeah, there are challenges, and certainly, and then there are days where I have my writer's block. But for the most part, I work, especially in the past few years, I work becoming more of a photojournalist / documentary photographer, right? I mean, like whatever when caption goes. It's as a matter of fact, and this is the 5W1H. This is everything that you need to know about this image. But then of course the challenge is to, well, like when you think about the work, more widely, and I don't know if for example, I'm struggling I'm a little struggling right now because National Geographic is publishing a book on COVID-19, and they asked me to write the foreword of one of the chapters, and I have to talk about hope and grief. So I just thought it's like, okay, I mean that perhaps they asked me because I made that image, and then like, what can I say as a photographer who made that image? Say about hope and grief, and then I think that's the challenging part. I mean, like how do you how do you tell this? How do you tell this? Like who are you speaking for? Yeah, and like what are you
Which
trying
is
to...
actually which is actually such a such a tough thing, and especially in these times when everyone has an opinion on internet, and when whatever you write or take photos of and share with your friends on Instagram or Facebook, many people have this problem that who are you? Who's on whose behalf you're speaking? For instance, in my case, I'm pretty privileged guy. I've got a roof over my head. I don't have to worry about my meals, and I've got the latest iPhone in my hands. So how can I take write about people who are living on the street or who are unprivileged, or you know? But so like you have to think about all these things. But at the end of the day, I've thought a lot about it, and I've got my share of flack also. And I think internet is great, but it also humiliates you so much. So sometimes you walk in the bazaar and you see, oh, some people have tweeted calling you stupid, dumb, this, that, and you suddenly feel, oh God, is this really am I?
But
But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm just only speaking about myself. I want to live my life. I want to understand myself and my place in this world. And I just want to be true to myself. So, every time one is, I think maybe you don't have, maybe you think differently, but I think every time we take a picture or write about some place or somebody, we are manipulating that world, because we see our world in a particular way.
well,
And at least I'm not neutral. I have a particular political mindset. I see the world in a particular way. I've grown up in a particular way. I read particular authors. So whatever I'm trying to capture or write about, it is coming through some sort of manipulation. So when I'm doing that manipulation, I just want to be sure that I'm being sincere to my sensibilities, and that I respect the person who is who is accepting me to photograph him or her, or to write about him or her. I have to
on this
respect
point,
that.
just 1 second on this point, and because we're running out of time before question time, but I just like to bring up a film that I saw called The Way I See It, and it's a documentary about the White House photographer Pete Souza, who covered Obama. You probably are familiar with him. He covered Obama for both terms, and he always considered himself apolitical. He was, he felt that his job is to document history, and this is another aspect of what both of you are doing. Is actually it will become history, whatever you consider to be your political point. But he considered himself apolitical until Trump came into office, and when Trump started lying, and says what he was moved to do. What he would post all these pictures of Obama, like as the counterpoint to every day when Trump said something, he would put up a picture of Obama and he would just put a short caption, and it would really show the contrast. And he went viral. I mean, he was this White House photographer nobody had ever heard of, really, outside of the photography sector. And suddenly, everybody is following him. He had 30,000, 30 whatever more in overnight, and then he ended up. I don't know how many followers he had on Instagram, but he just said, "Look, I don't really do this out of political reasons, but I'm just moved because there's been so many lies." There have been so many lies. And I think Mayank, whatever you say, okay, yes, you have your point of view, whatever, and I'm not saying the camera never lies, and I'm not saying there is no, we all have agendas or we all have a subjectivity, but there is an aspect of that documentation that, it is a proof to something that happened. What aspect of it, we don't know, but it does have a historical,
But of course, you're right. But I want to add to the thing which you're telling about the White House photographer, that even though he was saying when Obama was president that he was apolitical, just the very fact that he chose to be in Obama's White House was a political act. And in these times, in these days, the kind of injustices you are seeing in almost every society, every country in the world, you cannot be apolitical. And even if some person who says that I'm apolitical, that also is a political position, these days. So at least I don't buy this apolitical stuff. Even if some of us have the privilege of being apolitical, that just shows that from where you're coming. And when I said that we manipulate the images and the words, I don't mean that the images lie, but it's just the way we see the world. It depends on who you are, what are your influences, whom you admire, whom you don't like, whom you choose to photograph and whom you don't photograph.
But
These
if you
all these
photograph,
things
but if you
play.
photograph Trump, even if you liked Trump, something of Trump's personality will always come through. You know, I mean, I really believe this.
Of course.
You know, we think as photographers that we can control everything that comes through the lens. I find that most of the time there are things that happen to our lenses that we didn't even think about or suspect would happen. One of my mentors was a photographer called René Burri, and he told me the story of this very famous picture of Che Guevara with a cigar. You know, he was actually, René was running up the stairs to get to the roof because Castro was giving a speech. And he was running up the stairs, and as he went by that landing, he looked in the door, and there was Che with his legs up on the desk and smoking a cigar, and he just snapped. Tat, 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 and took about how many pictures. And you know, you can't say, okay, yes, he was there because he was interested in Cuba and also, but I don't have any argument with that. But I'm just trying to say that there's something that happens. Don't you think there is something that happens through the lens that you actually don't control? I mean, you, Josh, as a photographer, who, you know, much more than Mayank, who has a very simple, you have a technique that involves, you know, your knowledge. You studied photography. You had mentors who showed you. What do you think about that? That there's always something that comes through that you might not even be aware happened?
Oh, I mean, where do I begin? I mean, well, I was just going to, circling back, I'm sorry. From what Mayank said, I think every you know, like I remember like this one line from when I started on my first day of starting my master's. Like every artwork is a political act. So like whatever you choose to photograph, where you know what, like you said in Rio, what you choose to photograph and don't photograph. I think that's you know that also is a political act.
Sure.
But Rio,
But
you're
I'm really
completely
more.
right. You know, like, can I just say one
Sure, go ahead.
thing to Rio's point that you know we don't have control upon what we write and photograph, especially in the age of internet and these singular posts on Instagram and Facebook. Like my work is a continuation of, you know, I keep on writing about same people, same places at different times. But when I post a picture, let's say on Instagram, it then, you know, somehow it takes up an independent life and it's traced on its own and picked up by people who interpret it in their own. They don't see the context of my work. They don't see if I've written about that person
But isn't that the thing
before
that
or I
you?
will write after.
Isn't
It's
that the thing
just,
that
you
you weren't
know,
aware of?
anybody can make anything of it.
But isn't that exactly the thing that you weren't aware of? That it could be interpreted in a completely different context. For example, what you said
Yes,
to
of course, that's
Josh,
what I'm saying.
what you
Yes, you're
said to
completely
Josh,
right, yeah.
that photograph of that corpse could be in Nairobi, could be in, you know, wherever, you know, because there's that, you know, this, you know, but I don't think Josh was thinking, you know, that. I don't think I think when you took the picture, you were in Jakarta, right? You felt you were in Jakarta in this hospital. But if somebody sees that, you know, that could be, you know, anywhere. Anyway, listen, are there questions? Does anybody in the audience have any questions? I don't see any questions online yet. Are you sending them through now? Okay. Any questions in the audience here, the actual audience here? No? Okay, when the question comes through, let me know, because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mayank, or Josh.
No,
okay.
no.
Okay, here we go. Moving into the post-pandemic world, what are both Mayank and Joshua's future plans for their work?
Shall I start first?
What are your future plans?
I mean, I could go. Well, future plan. Well, I'm going back to Asmat, Papua. It's part of of like a National Geographic grant, storytelling grant. So I'll be supported, you know, documenting Asmat for the next 1 year. So that's my main bulk of work, and then I'll take up assignments in between.
Mayank?
Well, first of all, I don't know like when the post-pandemic world will come. I think we will continue to live in the pandemic world. And the second is that, of course, pandemic, the extreme forms of this first and second waves of pandemic, which we experienced the world and especially in Delhi, very traumatic. And I try to interpret it and chronicle it in my own way. I'm not a pandemic photographer, pandemic writer. I write about the city where I happen to be living in. Before the pandemic, also, I was writing about the city. During the extreme tragedies of the pandemic, I was writing about the city. And now, as the city is recovering and coming back to some sort of weird normalcy, I'm again writing about how our lives have altered. Ultimately, I write about our ordinary lives in an extraordinary world. So even in the pandemic, I was trying to write about ordinary experiences of people, what they were cooking, what they were eating, and those ordinary experiences during the pandemic had become truly extraordinary. So, I'll continue to do this until I die, just how we live, how we think, how our lives are being altered every moment of our existence. So this will go on.
And Josh, are you planning to do a book on Asmat, or what's?
That's the plan. That's part of the obligation and part of the outcomes that I hope to achieve. And yeah, I mean, one day when the work is when the field work is done, then it'll be somewhere in the cards for us. In what way, I'm not sure.
What? How many years have you been working on that? About 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the ground for about I was on the ground for about a year on the ground in Asmat, but then I keep coming back, on and off, family reasons, and back home, kind of a thing.
What are the big changes that you notice visually when you go back?
Well, I'll have to actually arrive there, but I mean, from the images that I've seen circulating between my friends in Asmat, I mean, Asmat is very quickly becoming, like about 8 years ago, like we don't even have internet, or we don't have internet or signal in the city. Now I can actually video call, from the village up to now to Jakarta.
Okay.
I mean, this is we're going to be talking about something that is off topic of the pandemic, but then we think about the developments in Papua. It really benefits the foreigners more than the Asmat or the Papuans themselves. Huh?
Mm-hmm. That's
I mean,
interesting.
I think that the key thing is that by 2030 there will be like less than 17% of Papuans in Papua alone.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to be political about this work, especially.
Sure. Agreed. Okay. We have a question in the audience here, in our audience, our live audience here. Please.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe take your mask down. It'll help. It won't be so.
It's not even on. Or is it? Okay. This is for Joshua. From what I know about Asmat, it's a very dirty place. You're never clean when you're there. I don't know. Maybe it has changed that much. But you strike me as a really well-groomed, clean guy. And I'm just curious, when you're going to be doing, well, you've already done some photo essays in Asmat. Just what's it going to be like for you there? Do you expect for a whole year to be muddy? And how are you physically handling this?
Well, in the past I managed.
He's young.
I mean, yeah, I'll be living in like a because the Asmat region is predominantly Catholics, and I'll be working under the auspices of the Catholic diocese there, and I'll be stationed in one of the villages, and be sharing that with a volunteer who has been doing work in Asmat for the past 5 years. I mean, physically, yeah. I mean, I'll just pick up and go. I mean, of course, you got to be wary of malaria. So I do have like a malaria prophylaxis and such. But once in a while, I suppose it's good to be out, in nature rather than be. I'm not sure if I'm a full-blown city boy yet. So.
Well, Mayank, you're a full-blown city boy. How do you see what's going to happen in Delhi coming up in the after this post-pandemic? I mean, are you seeing changes at all?
Well, sometimes I read the stories in New York Times where they say that New York is coming back to normal. People are getting rid of their masks. They are going to the markets and malls. And suddenly I feel, oh, in Delhi, life was always normal because people hardly follow rules in certain parts of the city. So they were always without the mask. The bazaars were always crowded. Everyone was spitting and cupping freely to your face. So, I feel, oh God, we are living a new normal, but it was always normal. So you don't know about that. Like, it's very interesting. Delhi, like many other cities in the developing world, especially, is full of disparities. Just for a writer or a photographer, it is fantastic to live in a city like Delhi and perhaps Jakarta also, that just walking from one district to another, you're transported into another world. So if I'm, let's say, in old Delhi, then it was always normal. Even in the extreme stages of coronavirus, everyone was out there, including the old people without the mask, sitting by the meat shop and gossiping and having chai. So you were really shocked, and they're still alive. So you're all getting shocked that wow. And then you'll go to some other place, let's say the posh Khan market, and there everybody's following the rules, everybody is in mask, and if somebody's mask slips under the nose, then a cop will come and charge 2,000 rupees, which is possible in Khan market, but not 10 minutes away in Old Delhi. So, it's really amazing. You're constantly walking from New York City to I don't know, some other city while being within Delhi in the single course of a day. So, which is very fantastic for somebody who just want to experience this many lives in one place.
Thank you so much. And the audience, I think we've run out of time. But it's been a very interesting hour. Thanks so much for joining us here. Joshua, Irwandi, and Mayank Soofi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Okay, everybody online or offline here watching, thank you so much for supporting the Yayasan Mudra Swari Saraswati program, patrons program, and to the festival's partners who made the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival possible. Thank you all so much for the support. Please follow Ubud Writers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or visit the ubudwritersfestival.com for more information about the program. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you. See you guys.
Platinum Partner, Planet Wheeler. Gold Partners, Australian Embassy, Jakarta. Embassy of the United States, Casa Luna. Silver Partners, Budaya Saya, Indus Restaurant, Honeymoon Guest House, Sachi. Bronze Partners, Kompasiana, Mud Literary Club. Media Partners, Now Bali, Now Jakarta, Harian Kompas, Harper's Bazaar Indonesia, Cosmopolitan Indonesia, Hard Rock FM Jakarta. Emerald Partners, Writing WA, Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries, Copernic, British Council, the Japan Foundation Jakarta, Pelataran Ubud Hotel and Spa, Official Internet Provider, Biznet, Community Partners, Gramedia Pustaka Utama, Literature Translation Institute of Korea, Zik Indonesia, Embassy of Italy Jakarta, Italian Cultural Institute, K-Club Ubud, Embassy of Canada, Embassy of Colombia in Indonesia, Penerbit KPG, The Westin Resort and Spa Ubud Bali, Plaga Wine, Park, Asian Way, Kanak Medica, VetNew. Media supporters, Detik.com, IDN Times Bali, Hipwi, Britabalik.id, USS Feed, Balai Bengong. Hamper supporters, Softies, Rosalie Cheese, Seniman Coffee, Ubud Coffee Roastery, Taksu Spa,